What's going on, people? Welcome back to another OG3. We are in the building. College football is here. And as you see, I'm here with my guy, Jeff. We're going to be joined by our guy, Mo, just in a bit, but the OG3 is going to be in the building. Jeff, what's going on, my man?
Not much, man. I'm just glad. My favorite time of year is here. College football's here. I like the week 0. They sprinkle a few games in. You know what I mean? We, kind of a little appetizer to get us ready for, the meat of the season. And then, jumping into the start. I think Thursday there's something like, I want to say there's over like 15 games Thursday, obviously a full bill Saturday. It's exciting. We did a show a few weeks ago. It's an exciting time. It's one of the most setting up to be the most one of the most exciting football seasons ever. The most changes we've ever saw in one season, and we already have a top 10 upset. There ain't been but 4 games.
Isn't that crazy? After just the first game of the season, we had an upset.
So it makes college football difference. You know what I mean? You schedule a game across the ocean with, a conference game 1, in a different country, no familiarity with anything, no home field advantage. Florida State's coming in with a transfer quarterback who, for lack of a better term, has been a bit of a disappointment, so far. And, DJ Ungalele. And the weather, everything showed up. Everything went exactly the way the favored, perceived, more athletic team could happen. It rained. Quarterback play wasn't great, and the other team was ready to fight and get dirty and, believe it or not, run the ball and play defense and won the line of scrimmage. It was a good old fashioned butt kick and great coaching by Georgia Tech. It was impressive. So that's where we're starting the season. But also what I like about it, to throw in there, the 12-team playoff, Florida State is not. If Florida State wins out, they're going to go in the playoffs. So this doesn't have to be a we ready to lose situation. We can have a good game. We can have an upset. We can tear apart Florida State, and that's fine. It's college football. That's what we're going to do. But they completely are fine and can get back into the playoff hunt. But they don't have any more missteps. But I do think they have a, one giant question behind the offensive line. So, cool week, man. Enjoyed it. Great game to start it off with. And it was just fun. You know what I mean? Not the end of the world, just fun.
Yeah, it was fun. And listen, I know how it feels to lose to Georgia Tech, in the last moments, so, it doesn't take away what happened to my team, but if we can rub off a little bit of that nastiness, I'm all for it. So
let's talk about it.
And
a couple of the benefactors were Miami. The whole ACC is like Florida State's got a loss. That's a week 1. Florida State has a loss. Last year, we know everything that happened, but they ran it last year, and now they've got a loss. So if you're a team like Miami, if you're a team like Georgia Tech, if you're Virginia Tech, Clemson, I mean, let's put it this way: if Clemson upsets Georgia this week, they're not going to. If they upset Georgia this week, all of a sudden Clemson's got a win over Georgia, and Florida State's got a loss, and Clemson's in the driver's seat for the playoffs. So it's like that's how quick this is happening. Clemson hasn't even played a game yet. So the winners from last week were everybody else in the ACC.
Yeah, and it to me, obviously Florida State, they had an impressive season last year, despite and we got our third member.
Nice.
In the building.
Nice.
Mr. Up in Flames himself. What's going on, Mo?
What's going on, fellas?
Just talking a little complete overreaction about the Florida State Georgia Tech game, what it means, basically what we covered so far. Not the end of the world for Florida State. They definitely have some questions behind the line of scrimmage, mainly with their quarterback. They probably got out muscled, out hustled, and out coached a little bit. The winners were the rest of the ACC because Florida State has a loss. So if you're Miami or Clemson, Virginia Tech, you're like awesome. That's kind of where we're at. How'd you feel about that game?
I mean, pretty much the same way. I told people that like Georgia Tech was going. Here was my theory on the game. I was like, Florida State's going to find themselves in a close game in the fourth quarter. And it's not about Georgia Tech being super elite. It wasn't about Florida State being bad or being overrated. It was just, it's week 0. A team like Florida State probably shouldn't have played this week, let alone played in Ireland. I mean, the type of games that we get, we had a shootout one year. It was Nebraska and Northwestern. Like, so you were supposed to put like Georgia Tech versus Syracuse or something, like two Power 5 schools to make everybody watch week 0, but not a number 10 ranked team. Like, nobody in the top 25 was supposed to play this weekend. But I felt like Georgia Tech could run the ball. That was the biggest question about Florida State. Could they stop the run? If they could, they would have had the easiest time in this game. They would have beat them by double digits. They would have covered the spread. No worries. We could have picked apart Florida State anyway because they only won by 17, but who really cares? Like, at the end of the day, like you say, Jeff, the only thing that matters is the loss column. They took a loss. Georgia Tech was in the game a lot longer than I thought they would be. I figured for 3 quarters they'll play great, and then the better team just overcomes it. We see it being an Ohio State fan. The Michigan State games end up like that. Sometimes the Purdue games can end up like that, where like they're in the game a lot longer than you expect, but you know we got the better team, they're going to win. But and then you downgraded at quarterback. Like, Florida State downgraded at quarterback. DJU throwing anything outside of 5 yards is not a good quarterback, essentially. Like, he was good enough at Oregon State. Me and Chris talked about this while playing the game. Like, he was good enough at Oregon State.
He has the arm too. That's the crazy. Like, he has the skill to go be a down the field type of quarterback. It's not like he doesn't have he's a mediocre talent, arm talent. He has the arm talent. It's just it baffles me that he just doesn't throw the ball down the field or down. He threw it on the middle. It's just crazy.
What happened to DJU against Notre Dame? Like, the guy that stepped in, who was it when Trevor Lawrence?
Yeah, it was Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, that's right.
He stepped in. Now, granted, Clemson lost, but he threw for what, like 400 yards? They put up 30-some points. Like, he was in a shootout with Notre Dame, and he looked like, okay, when T-Law leaves, they got them a good one. Like, this team just wasn't able to beat Notre Dame, but that was a pretty good Notre Dame team that year too. And it's like, so that gave the hope of like, he's going to be everything everybody thought he was going to be. And then we blame Clemson because we're like, well, the way they run their offense and they're not putting the elite talent around them, especially now that NIL's taking place and Dabo has talked so much about how, so it's like, okay, he doesn't believe in the portal. He doesn't believe in NIL. So they're not going to get elite talent. He needs to get up out of there. And then he goes to Oregon State and he was good. Like, was he great? No, but he was pretty good. And you were thinking like, okay, well, he leaves Oregon State. If he could do that, imagine going to a Florida State where there's a little more talent on the offensive side of the ball. When really you just look at it now and like DJU was looked at as a good quarterback at Oregon State because the standard is 2 different things. Like, and I do think the pressure that Florida State applied to themselves last year in December played an effect on this game. I do think the whole, we got shafted out of the playoffs. None of our starters played in the bowl game when we had an opportunity to play Georgia and prove that we belong because people were still hell-bent on the fact Georgia is a playoff team and could have won the national championship. Even after losing to Bama, they still were a playoff type team. That was their only loss in like 3 years. So I think that pressure that it put from all the fans, and I think Norvell was thinking about it, and like you just went out there and got bullied. And like that's the problem is like if you get bullied by Georgia Tech, like I'm looking at the ACC, and I know we could crap on the ACC all we want, but like Miami has NFL players on their team this year. There are multiple guys going to play at the next level. 1 or 2 probably in the first round. Day 1 and day 2 guys. Then you talk about they're going to have to play Florida. Florida's one of those teams. They got NFL players on their roster. They just have, a rough schedule. But like if you can't beat Georgia Tech or like you're getting bullied around by Georgia Tech, then like you got to be a little nervous. They got what? They got Notre Dame left. They got Florida left. They got Miami. Like there's some games on the schedule where I'm like, man, if Georgia Tech was able to do that to you in the trenches, I don't see why it would be a different story. When you have a trenches problem like that, that's not fixable in practice. That's a personnel problem. And this isn't the NFL. where like you could go find some old vets that are looking for homes that could fix some holes for a season. You
Exactly,
can't, your roster's your roster, and you got a personnel problem. So, like, yes, the world is not over for Florida State.
Nah.
But I mean, a week 0 loss, man. Like, and then they got another Power 5 game next week.
Yeah, but they wasted. But
what they got? BC.
But Boston
PC,
College.
right?
Yeah, they got Boston College coming up. But here's the thing.
And a Bill O'Brien, Boston College. You know how it's physical.
Boston College should have beat Florida State last year. Don't forget that game was why people were like, this is not a good undefeated Florida State team. They should have lost to Boston College last year. So like you got bullied around by Georgia Tech. You got to play a team that had you by like biting your nails at the end of the game and through the game. They really should have beat you through the game. That's your first two. Florida State, there's a world where Florida State starts 0-2. And like really, there's a world where this season could turn. Like I know it's not because they could go blow out Boston College, right the ship, and things start looking good moving forward. But like you can lose Boston College and you could be 7-5. Starting out number 10 and finish 7-5, like all because Georgia Tech bullied you around. There's a formula to beat Florida State now.
Yeah, and again, Florida State is by no means out of it, but they wasted one of their their lives. If you're playing
conference loss and
you're playing Call of Duty, like you're down in life right now. Yeah, you took a conference loss in week 0.
Even if Cleveland goes and loses Saturday against Georgia, which I think we all expect them to, but like that's a non-conference loss. So when we talk about later in the season, trying to play for the ACC championship, like let's say that's Clemson's only loss for the season, then the same being 11-1. Clemson got the tiebreaker because it was a non-conference loss. So, like, you even looking at some of those games, like, now teams can afford – there's ACC teams can afford a loss. A Miami could now afford a loss to a Florida and not panic because it's a non-conference loss and still run up against Florida State.
And I think that's something great that's already – it's week 0, and we already see a benefit of the 12-team playoff that Florida State can – not can they just still make the playoffs. They can still get a bye.
Yeah, they could win out in the ACC.
Win the ACC.
Like, that's not realistic.
Because what we don't want is to scare these teams away. Like I'm with Mo, that's probably not the right matchup, but whatever, they decided to go. But like what we don't want is to scare teams off from scheduling these games or taking these attempts. Like 20 years ago, Florida State's almost eliminated from the national championship right now for no reason whatsoever, except for they played a tough team on a bad day and it poured down rain.
Decided to play.
Before we move on, let's shout out to the other side of the ball, King for Georgia Tech. That dude, I've watched him about 4 times, over the years. He's a baller. He's just one of those guys that like gets it at that level. Classic, just kind of a gritty college quarterback that it has control of his team. His draw play towards the end of the game, to set up the touchdown is. I mean, that's just the little things. And he does that a lot. He's, athletic kid, tough kid, makes good throws. I just really like enjoying that guy play. He's not going to be an NFL, Hall of Famer, and we don't care. He's a really fun college quarterback, and that's what it takes to be the underdog and win is you got to have one of these dudes. And that's why teams like Utah are going to be really good this year. They might not have quite the roster of the top dogs, but they got them old dudes at quarterback that have control of their team, know how to get it done. All the superlatives you want to gritty, moxie, whatever you want to throw on them dudes. That helps you get through these games. And quite frankly, we won't belabor it, but DJ we haven't seen that since that Notre Dame game. That's a great point. I mean, he had a good season at Oregon State, but we didn't see it, and they needed it. They needed a quarterback.
And it's a different standard. It's a different standard coming in playing for Florida State, who's ranked number 10, as opposed to being able to go 9-3 and be competitive in the Pac-12. It's just a different standard.
Yeah, and if that field goal kicker for Florida State doesn't have a super leg, we might not even be talking about a close game.
It's a blow.
That's the only reason.
10+ point win.
Like Georgia Tech wins the game by 10 without the kicker.
Yeah. So a good kick.
Good the game from outside of the first drive because Florida State basically was like, they threw one pass, pounded it, down the field. Ended up having a 28-yard touchdown run. Yeah. And you're like, this could get ugly. I said, but Georgia Tech also gets to respond. Like, let's not panic and think this is Florida State. It's Florida State sending a message, but Georgia Tech has an opportunity to respond. And what'd they do? The same thing right back down the field. Like, they literally answered them, same thing right back down the field. And what I love is the fact that the coach didn't lose his marbles on that first touchdown and decide to go for 2. Like, nope, you know what? They went for 2. They're trying to make a statement. We're still going to play our game. We scored a touchdown. We're down 8-7. So what? We'll worry about a 2 if we need it later.
Yeah. You don't chase points in the first quarter. Yeah. You don't chase points.
And if a good segue into talking about next week is that also beware of a team that has all summer to get ready to play you. Like, beware of teams that know who they need to beat, know who they need to focus on. Also, like Florida State has to, to Lamo's point, they got to worry about beating a bunch of teams because they want to go to the playoffs. I'm not saying Georgia Tech can't go to the playoffs because they can. They actually, it's much easier now than ever.
They can,
but they had all summer to look at this Florida State team who made all the arguments in the world for why they should have been in the playoffs. Everything Mo said, and this team had all summer to watch them and to take them on. If they play them in the middle of the season, I don't think they win the game, but they didn't. They got to play them early, and they were ready. And there's a lot of teams this week. We'll talk about the schedule here in a second. There's a lot of teams that, here's another thing. Take away from the week as a whole, like. I believe all the underdogs covered, if I'm not mistaken. So like all the underdogs, so the Vegas underdogs were ready this week. So be a warning, like it's a different college football world now. You got more mature. It's just we've seen it with college basketball a couple decades ago. Things start evening out, and it just takes a couple extra good players or a couple guys ready. Georgia Tech's offensive line was ready. King was ready. They can upset you.
Talk about dominating the line of scrimmage. Like Georgia
Florida
Tech
State's got a bunch of pass rushers, and
Georgia
Georgia Tech
sacks.
got a bunch of dudes.
Zero
a
sacks
bunch of
given
dudes.
Up. They looked from the jump. I'm like, oh, okay, this Georgia Tech
they look like they belong on the same field as Florida State.
They look like they, and I think it's been a while since we felt about a Georgia Tech team where we're like, okay. Like
that's another good point. It's good to see Georgia Tech good.
It's been a minute since Georgia Tech has been like, okay, we here. Like it feels like the mid 2000s they had a little bit of a run, but y'all
know I watched Georgia Tech win a national championship. Y'all know that, right?
Jesus Christ, Jeff.
Yeah, man, Jeff. He's showing you age now, Jeff.
They shared. I believe they shared. I always get. I think they shared with. Did they share with Washington? I think, if I remember correct. I know Michigan and the team one.
I don't even remember that.
Anyway, I've seen Colorado win a national championship. I've seen Georgia Tech win a national championship. I've seen Washington win a national championship. But Georgia Tech won a national championship, 30 years ago. Like it happened. So like
it baffles me how like a school like Georgia Tech isn't that appealing though? Because like think about it, like bro, it's in the center of Atlanta. Like the campus in the football field is in the center of Atlanta. Like it's not on the outskirts in one of the smaller towns. It's literally in Atlanta. So you would think like with Atlanta being as big as it is, as popular as it is, like you would think it'd be very easy to get a lot of kids to come, and you think it'd be easy to get a coach. Like because I get to recruit in Georgia, Florida, Tennessee. So like in the middle of the South, I get to recruit all these players in my backyard or down the road in another state, and I get to convince them, hey, you get to come to the city of Atlanta and be a star athlete. Like, so I'm just surprised, like a school like Georgia Tech can go 20 years of being like mediocre to bad. And then like, I'm not saying they're great or anything, but like a win like this for Georgia Tech in this time right now, like that's very important. Like, how many recruits you think that had Georgia Tech on their Final Four, and they've got some recruits now, like they got a recruiting class that's decent, but how many of those guys you don't think are like, okay, man, they might be second on the list right now. Like it's early, I don't have to sign yet, but man, they might be second on the list. Or now Georgia Tech come calling some of those guys to flip and be like, man, we got something cooking over here. You seen what we did in week 0, like that could be enough.
But what stinks about this, Mo, is what's really going to happen is what really happened after that game was Georgia Tech's coach went to the top of like the hiring list if somebody fires their coach.
Yeah.
That's what sucks about it.
Yeah.
He knew after that game, like, well, I won't be at Georgia Tech much longer. He'll be if he has a season that plays out like this and his team can play like this and they win 8 games, but they can keep playing like this, he'll get a shot at whatever team, boots their coach at the end of the season. And Georgia Tech will be starting over again. That's the issue.
As long as they don't go back to the triple option, I think they'll be all right.
Yeah, what a mistake. I see what they did, but like that's
nasty.
a whole different show. Stu did a show on
that.
that. Like that's a great equalizer, but for some reason, if you want the NFL talent, it's not. Nobody's really figured out why. Nobody's really figured out why the great athletes can't make it work. We're not sure. I think it's my opinion. I know, not to get off topic here, then we'll move on. My opinion with why the triple option doesn't translate into the top level teams or the NFL is that the way you got to build an offensive line is almost impossible, because it's a completely different offense. Like if you try to do it in the NFL, you'll have 5 to 7 completely different types of offensive linemen as every other team. Like, I don't know how you recruit and draft that. And then if something breaks down, then that's all you can do. That's the thing about it. But that's why it's because of the way you got to build an offensive line that offense will never work at the big time level. It's weird. It's weird to say that, but it's true. It's a weird conundrum with that offense of the type of guys you have to have run it. Then what happens is when Georgia Tech proved this, when those guys get down like 14 in a game and have to start pass blocking, then they get bum rushed.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can't, like, you just can't come back. And in today's college football, you got to be able to come back, and you just can't come from behind. And then the NFL, you can't. So that's the only reason it doesn't translate, is because the offensive line just can't flip a switch and all of a sudden, play air raid to catch up in a game. Anyway, that's my preach on that. We should probably talk about next week. Cool, though. It's good to have that loss and something to talk about after week 0. I love it.
Week 0, yeah. And I think this is a big boost for Georgia Tech. This is a win that, like you said, it helps the program.
Well, it's a real win.
Recruiting. It's a real win versus a team that went undefeated last year, regardless of what happened. They went they did almost undefeated. They lost.
Yeah.
Georgia humbled them. But had a really good season, and then came in top 10.
But to Mo's point, they were. It was hinted that they might be fraudulent last year, and that drove them crazy. But all they did was come out and lose the first game. Like, I'm just giving you the facts. Like, I didn't say it, but it was out there of like, well, how good are they really? If they would come out and beat the brakes off Georgia Tech, we'd all be like, man, what could have been. But now it's not what could have been. Everything they did last year is stopped. Now we're done with that. We've turned the page. We're like, nah, it wouldn't happen. We saw what happened in the bowl game. We saw what happened first game of the season. You're basically putting you in the UCF category. I mean, I'm saying that's the overreaction of it. And they got to prove their way back up, and they can. They definitely can. They're fine.
They definitely can. But like you said, you had all year, you heard the naysayers say, "Oh, you guys are fraudulent. Look what Georgia did to you guys. Blah blah blah. That's why you didn't make the playoff." And you had an opportunity to make a statement like, hey, last year wasn't a fluke. Like, Florida State is back. Yeah. And you laid an egg.
You lose game 1.
I understand circumstance. You're not. And you're not in the States. You're in a different country. But also, Georgia Tech is not in the States. They're in a different country too.
It's also,
you weren't.
It's fair to overreact. It's fair to overreact because every other team would get it. If this is Ohio State, if this is Notre Dame, if Notre Dame gets beat week 1, we are going to bring the house down on top of them. So it's just part of the process for Florida State. I understand it's ridiculous, but that's why we do these shows, and that's why we love college football. Because in 2 weeks by 15, we're like, and forget all about that game. But for an hour, we get to talk about it and dissect it. It's great. I love it. It was fun to watch too. Really, really good game to watch. I love that Ireland Stadium. I love watching that game. It comes on early. I was in Wisconsin. Started at 11 a.m. in Wisconsin. Yeah. Let me tell you, 11 a.m. in Wisconsin, you're 2 hours late to crack your first beer. That's a wild place.
It was 11 a.m. out here in Texas, so it was perfect.
Central
time. I went to the gym, got home right before 11 o'clock. Took a shower, was able to watch the game, and then go on about my Saturday. It was perfect for a week 0 too, to have a game that's really worth sitting down watching. But then knowing there's still more football on, but I can go on about my day and catch it and when I'm done.
And I didn't get to watch as much as I usually do because we were out running around. I was on vacation with some friends. But shout out to them doing the HBCU showcases. I love that. That's week 0 is a great time. To let some lesser viewed teams get out there on the floor and show what they got. I got to catch one of the halftimes, which everybody knows HBCU game. The halftimes are fire. So that was cool to have the show on prime time.
It's game time.
It's just amazing.
It's game time.
It really is fun, but I like those games. It's good quality football. I mean, the athletes basically they're a little undersized, but they're all great athletes. It's great games. They just sometimes it might be a little undersized, but who cares? I think that's cool though for them to have the showcase and put out there what they got, and who knows what's going to happen in the future of college football. How much of a factor they'll be. But good weekend overall for a football fan. I think I'll wait till after the show to bring up my thoughts on ESPN's College Game Day. I think I'll wait for my rant. Talk about how bad, just how they've dropped off the mat, like how they're so out of touch with like today's college football and don't know what you're talking about. And
when you pay McAfee $100 million, $120 million, and then you let you still got Desmond Howard up there with his biases. Like
Desmond Howard literally said he wouldn't pick Ohio State. That's what kind of professional he is. You know what I'm saying? Like it's gotten ridiculous. They sat for 10 minutes and talked about, they basically acted like 7 other Big Ten teams were as good as like the top Big Ten teams. Now come on. It's like, look out for Nebraska. They might be 7-0 coming into Columbus. Like, so
I've been saying that, but at the same time, like I've been saying like Nebraska is going to be better than people think. I said, don't be surprised if they're coming in to that Ohio State game 7-0, while also understanding that like Nebraska could be ranked 15 going into that week, and then they just get obliterated. Like that's one of those like a season of hope gone down the drain, and that's where you got to be careful, because a loss like that for Nebraska, and they finish 7-5, start out 7-0 and finish 7-5, because
and a lot of these teams that we're going to talk about, they stumbled through it. There was no fluidity to it. They're trying to let McAfee run the show, but then they don't really gravitate to him. Like they don't play off of him, because they're like, no, we're not your bros, sitting around you at the show. Like I'm Kirk Herbstreit, I'm the man.
But they want to showcase the $100 million man. But
that's what I'm saying. They showcase McAfee, and Herbstreit's like, I'm not playing second fiddle to this clown. I mean, you can tell it. It's on the stage. Saban wants no part of being there. Saban even admitted on the show, I cannot stand talking about hypotheticals. And he took a job on a pregame show, but he doesn't want to talk about hypotheticals. So what exactly does Nick want to do? What did he think he was going to do when he got there?
Take the check.
Yeah. And so that was a complete, and I like Nick. I like Nick and his brain and all that. But like, if you're not here to talk about what ifs and overreactions and hypotheticals, I don't know what you're here for, Nick.
To me,
he's still in coach mode.
To me, he'd be perfect for like a Manning cast type for college football.
100%.
Like I think you get Nick Saban and somebody else for like a Manning cast style for college football. I think that'd be perfect. Like I think that's perfect for somebody like him, because we get to see the insight. You're gonna break down the plays from a different view. The greatest coach of all time, being able to tell us what he sees, what he doesn't like, Like I think that would be. I think that'd be a great role, and I think Saban would turn into a $100 million man doing a man person, and you start pandering, Saturdays to that, and I think people like you get that with the big games, and then I think people would love that at the same time. But you can't do that and then have him doing like I don't think you could do that with the biggest games in college football, because I think commentary from the commentators is very huge, like the Ohio State Oregon game late in the season, like later on in the season in October, like people want like Joel Klatt and Gus Johnson on that call. Like that, like, like the SEC games, like a Bama Auburn or Bama Georgia, when they play, like they want, like we want the
Testador
an Eagle and somebody else on the call. Like to the commentating, making the game better. So I don't know. Like, I think you have to do that on the Saturday, 7:00 p.m. Eastern kickoff on ESPN. It's like LSU versus like Arkansas or something. Like that's the game where, maybe LSU fan, but that side game because there's a main 8:00 p.m. kickoff on ABC. So that's the main game everybody's watching. Like you play him LSU Arkansas or like Ole Miss versus Vanderbilt, and let him talk about those kind of games. You don't put him on the marquee matchup.
We were just sitting there drinking beers. I don't watch the show much at all for obvious reasons. And
it's just Desmond's
just a cloud. Yeah, it's just
background.
Like background. To watch him do the picks at the end was clunky. It was no fun. Luckily, Seamus was there to bring some personality. And in all honesty, he was killing it, but it's just clunky and they just no rhythm or whatever. And it just is what it is. It's the show is just it's jumped the shark. Like Mo said, we got there's so much information and stuff now. Like we don't need them to tell us this stuff. Like we all know what's happening. Like give us something new, give us some insight, have some fun. But yeah, it just wasn't good. Just wasn't a very good show.
It is what it is at this point. But let's talk about some of these games.
Yeah, let's do that for a few
we got a solid slate, for this weekend.
Oh, we have a great slate.
That's a good week one.
Really have a great week one.
It's a good week one to start off the season.
Yep.
So give me some games that you're feeling that we could possibly see an upset.
An
upset watch.
I had one.
Colorado Thursday night is on upset alert against North Dakota State.
Right? They play North Dakota State.
Yes, they are. I am not saying North Dakota State is going to win that game, but what I am going to say is Colorado's a 10-point favorite. Sounds real familiar. Somebody that was ranked number 10 was just a 10.5-point favorite. North Dakota State has been the best Division I AA or Division. What are they? 1 AA or 2? No, they're 1 AA. They're 1 AA.
I think they're called FCS now.
FCS. So they've been the number one. They've basically been the cream of the crop. Now we've seen this throughout the years. We could go back to Michigan, Appalachian State. We could go back to a couple years ago, Jeff, where remember we talked about one of the greatest games, just game period that I ever watched was North Carolina versus Appalachian State.
Oh,
and when that game, it was 60-something to 60-something shootout, overtime. I think this could be one of those games. And if Colorado goes out there and blow them out, I know all the people that are have been, stroking Colorado's ego for the past year and a half is going to have fun with, oh, look, you said no. But this is not an easy game for Colorado to schedule when you're talking about a bunch of new players. You're talking about a whole new system. You're talking about different coaches, and you're playing a team that's out here playing. This game's probably going to be the most watched game on Thursday night. And North Dakota State is playing in front of probably the biggest crowd that's ever going to watch them on national television. And it just means something for them. If North Dakota State wins this game, we'll kill Colorado and everybody will have fun and get off the Dion train. That's cool. But this means something for North Dakota State. You got to be careful for those games this early that Colorado could lose this game and still win the Big 12. It's like the Florida State game. They still could be fine. I don't think they'll win the Big 12, but I'm just saying their season's not over. But for North Dakota State, this could be the biggest win in the history of the program outside of, I know the true North Dakota. Well, we've won FCS championships. Those are our biggest wins. But as far as the spotlight and how many million of people are going to be watching this game, this is the focal point game of Thursday night. And there's a couple matchups, but I think North Dakota State.
Yeah.
I would have them. People will tell you North Carolina, Minnesota, for the simple fact it's 2 Power 5 schools, ACC, Big 10. So that'll get a lot of eyes and everybody will watch. But this North Dakota State and the Colorado hype train, this is probably going to be the most watched game on Thursday night. And this is one of those games. Don't be surprised if North Dakota State got Colorado, hanging by.
It's bad with Florida State, the way they're catching a lot of heat. If Colorado loses this game week one,
Dion ain't gonna let nobody in a presser ever. You just can't ask him questions post game.
It's gonna be nasty.
I tell you, the team
that's the only thing is, boy, if North Dakota State beat Colorado, it's gonna get real racist round. I can tell you that, boy, they gonna kill
the whitest state in the
hey, Donald Trump might have a rally in North Dakota that Saturday. He's going to pull up in Air Force One for the simple fact because North Dakota State beat Deion Sanders. I'm telling you, it's going to be bad.
North Dakota State.
Yeah, with a Bison helmet on.
It's going to be, oh, man, it is
greatest football team in the country.
No, he'll just look out he'll just look out and be like, I told you, and all them people know what he's talking about.
I told you North Dakota State was going to win the national championship.
a team that really ought to be super nervous for a week one matchup. Penn State.
Penn State.
Okay.
That's what I was saying. West Virginia.
Number 8 team in the country, but a lot of people are basically calling them like they're saying the Big Ten might be 1A, 1B, and 1C. Like that's how good they're saying Penn State are. And they're number 8 in the country and only an 8.5 point favorite. So somebody doesn't like for an unranked team to come in. You play an unranked team going to Morgantown, right? I mean, it's that would be the most nerve wracking. We don't know how good Aller's going to be. They replace some talent. They're going to have a good defense. I think Penn State's going to win, but it's one of these to where like if they don't, I'm not that surprised. Like when you're retooling your team, like all these good teams got to do every year. You don't want to play a decent team week 1. You don't want to play. You just don't, because you just all the little, like what Florida State just went through, all those little mistakes get compounded and you don't get those second chances. You don't get the stupid turnovers for touchdowns. You know what I mean? Like how many times have I watched Ohio State play like crap against a bad team, but they'll get 2 defensive touchdowns, win by 30, and you forget how bad they played. Penn State might not get that chance if Aller's not, if good. And in some games, he didn't have a lot of good games last season.
Yeah.
And it's another one to where West Virginia had all summer to prepare for one game and then figured out the rest of the way. So that's definitely a tripping block. I think Chris, Miami and Florida, like that's a nerve wracker because you got talent. Sometimes talent. We saw Florida, then they beat Utah a couple years ago. You know what I mean? Like it sometimes talent steps up and somebody makes a mistake. I think Miami is going to be really good. I believe all the hype. I think Cam Ward's awesome, and I wanted him to go to Ohio State and all that. But I think
Florida State's wishing they gave a little bit more money so they can have him.
Unranked Florida like that. Like I know all this ranking stuff is dumb, and I despise rankings, but they're there. And so the kids see it, the players see it, the coaches see it. They're like, they don't even have you ranked, dude. They got them ranked basically 26 is what they're saying, but it's better to have them unranked for this game. It makes more sense. 2.5 points, that's nothing. You know what I mean? Vegas thinks that's a toss up. And the only reason I bring Vegas into this is they watch a lot of football. So if Vegas is telling you like 2.5, they think it's going to be a close game, and they got a lot of people that make a lot of money to do all this scouting and say
their goal is to not lose money.
Their goal is to not lose a bunch of money. So they're like 2.5 is nothing. That's basically in football. That's saying a pick'em game.
It's like a pick'em essentially.
But the other side of that, Miami wins. This catapults them into the season coming off of the Florida State. Watching Florida State lose, and then they take out the Gators. Again, that's another rivalry that I remember when it was like the biggest game in the world for a few seasons back in the day. So I want to see it be that good again. I want to see Miami be good again. I'm tired of every year being like they're, here we are, then it doesn't happen.
Tell me about it, Jeff.
But it was close. Like, it's close. So I think they got the quarterback, and I think they got the team. I think they got the athletes, and I think the U is as close to being back legit as we've seen for a few years. And Florida is on. We had them on our watch list, guys, as far as coaches on the hot seat. If Florida, and let's say there's a world where Florida gets dominated, I don't care what the score is, gets dominated. Now you got a problem. So this is one of them storyline games. Like no matter what happens coming out of it, there's a narrative.
And I want to see. The thing is, okay. So in Jeff's words, full disclosure, and I think Jeff can attest to this. I probably will see 5 minutes maximum of that Miami Florida game because
I'll rewatch it. I'll have to rewatch it.
Yeah, because they play at the same time as Ohio State. Unfortunately, I know most of the world going to be watching Miami and Florida, but this guy is going to have Ohio State and Akron. I don't care if it's 63-0.
Oh, we got to watch every play.
So, but the thing I'm interested in that game is in the past 2 weeks, like we talk about Cam Ward, we talk about, EA came out. So like we got our first look at some of the players, based on playing the video game. Miami got a receiver. Like we could talk, they got a D line. We could talk so much about what Miami has. But like in the past 2 weeks, there's been a random hype train of Graham Mertz. Like people have been buying Graham Mertz stock. People are saying, they want to come out and say he's not Heisman watch or anything, but like this is probably one of the top 10 quarterbacks in the country.
And there's times I like him a lot.
And there are times I like him, but there's also times where I'm like, bro, come on now. Like, this dude has had opportunity. They told us he was going to be the next coming to Jesus when he was at Wisconsin and had that one good game. Never saw it again. He played pretty well with Florida. He played decent, but like, I'm interested to see, like, because here's the thing. What most of the country does agree with is there's a dude on the side of Miami playing quarterback. So if you're selling me that Graham Mertz is a really good dude, they're not saying he's that dude, top 5 or nothing. But if you're telling me he's a really good dude, we get to see what he looks like when he takes the field, because when his defense is on the field, we get to see what a dude really looks like in Cam Ward in Miami. So I am interested to see how good Graham Mertz is going to play in this game, because if you tell me you're a good quarterback, you are going to play good in this game. Are you got one of them got to win, one of them got to lose? But if you want me to say that you are a good quarterback, you are going to look fairly competent compared to Cam Ward on the other side. I don't think he will. I think Cam Ward will look like the much better quarterback, but people are trying to tell me that Graham Mertz might be a little bit of a problem. And like, Florida's a good team who just really got, the craziest schedule I've ever seen in my life. Like,
it really is.
Might be the best team.
And then like the 5, like you could go 6-6, but watch them and be like, bro, that was a damn good team.
And I think,
look who they play. Like this Florida team is not bad. It's
there's
just
more quote unquote motivation for Florida because of it. They're like, hey,
schedule,
we can't let this one. And just real quick on Mo's point, just an overall point that I was going to make is check out. You got all these ranked teams. You have Florida State already. You got USC. You got LSU. You got Oregon. You got Michigan. You got Ohio State, and you got Miami. You got all these teams, new quarterbacks, ranked teams. First time the quarterback started. I think to me, that is one of the biggest storylines of the week is how does, Nebraska with the Raiola kid, like what's he look? That really week 1, we're going to see where Howard, all these teams with these new quarterbacks that are ranked high, but it's all based on, we think the quarterback's good. Just like Mo just said, to his point, Mertz is one, all these quarterbacks to watch and see, how they play. Oklahoma. All these teams, like, how we think you're this, but we're going to find out. You're not going to play against the best competition, but you can tell with a quarterback of, like Will Howard's going to be under the knife for Ohio State. Like everything he does, every throw he makes, every motion, every run, everything he does will be dissected regardless of the score of that game. Just like these other kids will, so all that. So how do the new guys run the offense? How do they look? How do they blend in? What's the concerns that coming out of the week?
And
the game,
like Cam Ward, this ain't Washington State.
Well, no, as I said, Cam Ward too. Cam Ward too. All the pressure your first game.
This game, this is Miami. People are saying Miami's back. People think, I think it's more legit this year. Like I think this is a damn good Miami team. Agreed. So I don't think it's like they've been trying to push Miami to be back with the turnover chain, and it was cool. But like you knew they were missing a quarterback. Their offense wasn't that. Like Miami was back to people, but looked like Iowa in a sense. Like an elite defense, an insane defense. They sent guys in the first round, but they didn't have much offensive talent. Now you got Cam Ward, who people are saying is really good, but like this isn't Washington State. Like, 7-5 does not get it done. Losing a game but throwing for 350 yards and 4 touchdowns doesn't get it done.
I would go so far as to say
for Florida and Miami, like you setting the tone by winning this game.
So I would say there's 2 must-win games for both teams on this. You guys know I love to bring these up. Both teams have to win. I think Texas A&M, Notre Dame, I think both those teams need to win that game dearly. I don't think Notre Dame's getting all the benefit of the doubt because of like Freeman. They got the transfer from Reed, from Duke coming in. Riley Leonard. Got that coming in. Got the benefit of the doubt to get overranked. Like everybody knows they're overranked. They're overranked, and they're going to go to play Texas A&M in that madhouse against like I don't care like what's left of the carnage. After the coach got fired, like you got dudes out there. Like there's still some dudes out there. Like that is a must win. If you don't, we got some serious conversations to have game. Texas A&M wins it, then like, oh great, another decent team in the SEC to go through. LSU and USC, I think it's a must win game for both. I don't think either one of these teams, Sunday night game, neither one of these teams want to start with a loss. Trying to like get one in a new conference, trying to get a foothold of, the top of the conference. You got LSU with all the momentum coming off last year. And then everybody's like, well, was it just a magic quarterback, or is Kelly really, there with the team?
Can the defense stop anyone?
And also, you just don't want to take losses early. So just some really great,
great
losses. And then I suppose we got to talk about. Go ahead. Say that again.
How much does a blowout loss Sunday night from USC impact Lincoln Riley? Like,
ginormous.
He can lose. Like, I'm not saying at the end of the day, these are two really good teams. LSU is expected to win. They're the slight favorite, but like things that like you can take, it hurts your heart a little more when you have an opportunity to win the game and you don't. But when you go out there and get blown out, like it raises way more conversations. And like the simple fact, your first year in the Big Ten, you have a chance to make a statement. Like you could go out there, beat LSU and be like, man, y'all been talking this Ohio State, Oregon, but like we got Lincoln Riley, we got good quarterback play. We have a high-powered offense. We could play this Big Ten football and be a major factor. But you go out there and get blown out. Your defense doesn't look any better. You have no more. You don't have anything else to blame. People have talked about how much of a upgrade this defensive coordinator is over Alex Grinch. People talk about how good Miller Moss should be, how good, how great, not even good, how great quarterbacks are under Lincoln Riley. So, I don't expect anything less than great stats from Miller Moss. And I saw that in the bowl game last year. Like, he was pretty damn good. So, but if you have all that, you're telling me Miller Moss is a guy, I think he might be in just under Lincoln Riley's system. There's nothing for me to believe that he won't be a pretty good quarterback. Yeah. But you go out there and get blown out on Sunday night. You are a standalone game. Nobody gets to watch anything else but you. So the focus is on every little thing that you do. And if you get blown out by LSU, even if LSU later on in the season becomes a great team, finishes 11-1 and plays in the SEC championship, you're supposed to have a fighting chance in this game. I just wonder, do the odds switch about the first coach to be fired? And I'm not saying he gets fired after week 1. Of course not. And I think Lincoln Riley's he's the type of guy, he makes it through a whole season. You don't fire him in the middle of the season. Yeah. But the hot seat, I think he's kind of on a hot seat. And I think it gets a lot hotter if they were to get blown out and the coach that you're going against on the other side, Brian Kelly, is also known for not being the greatest in these big games. So it's not like you're just outmatched talent-wise. You're just outmatched head coach-wise. Like, both of y'all are known for really not winning these games. So if you go out there and get blown out, like Brian Kelly's hype, heightens, but people I know I've killed Lincoln Riley all summer, but I'm just saying, I think it's rightfully so. And blowout loss could be very damaging. Like, everybody want to talk about firing Ryan Day, and everybody want to talk about firing, Billy Napier. He's the hottest name, but hey, Lincoln Riley go out here and get blown out, man. The season could go to hell really quick.
I agree. And I think another one with that pressure. Same reason. I think Franklin, but he's playing West Virginia. He should be all right. He beats everybody but the good teams in the Big Ten. It'll be fine.
So he should.
But a team that really has the most on the line is Notre Dame, because they don't have a conference. We talked about the second chance.
They can go undefeated. They could only
Notre Dame loses game 1 to one of their best opponents. They're in trouble. They have to fight out of that the rest of the season to prove that they deserve in the playoffs. They have no second chance. They have no backup clause.
And they still got Florida State on their schedule. They still got USC on their schedule. They don't have a slouch schedule that if they open up losing to Texas A&M, you see 1, 2, 3 more losses on their schedule now. Yeah, you start talking about this 8-4 team instead of 11-1 now because they lost the first week of the season.
And to tell you serious, they lose to Texas A&M. They're the first. They're out of the playoffs until proven otherwise. Every other team in a conference is fine. They all get a second chance. No big deal. They're going to win. Play. Notre Dame doesn't have that. And plus, like I said, lose to, and they're one of the few teams too that need style points. And that's what sucks about not being in a conference now. These other Florida State don't. They just got to win their conference. We talked about it. Notre Dame has to look good because they have to be ranked high enough to get in if they lose a game. And so now you're back to humans need to put you in. And so you go down to Texas A&M and get beat up, your season is in trouble after week 1. So Notre Dame is the one, they got to win. So there's like I say, if you're a college football fan, you really dig into the storylines. There's a lot to watch this week. and learn about college football, as it goes through the season.
And there's an elite game at every time.
And there's one more game at noon.
Georgia play Oklahoma. Georgia play Clemson, my fault.
Oh,
Clemson.
At 12 o'clock. Then, we're Ohio State fans, so we care about that game. But the national, Miami play Florida at 3:30.
Yeah.
And then you close out the night game with Notre Dame, Texas A&M. That's the best week one you could
week one.
Loading up week one. Like, everybody going to care about the individual teams. Idaho play Oregon, so all the Oregon fans going to be. But as far as national relevance, like each time slot has a game that, like, if your team's not playing, it is worth being a college football fan to sit down and watch.
I know we talked.
For week
yes, I agree, Mo. Great week, great lineup. I can't wait. And like I say, we get to learn so much. You just have little things like you have a Big Ten team going into LSU to play a football game. What?
Yeah.
Or is that played on neutral site?
Vegas. It's in Vegas. That game's in Vegas.
I'm sorry. Okay, so that's cool. That's cool. I forgot about that they do that on Sunday. That's my bad.
And I'm gonna be honest. I think the aesthetics of that game could be a game changer for the Big Ten because I know Big Ten fans don't want to hear this, but don't be surprised if the Big Ten get the itching on moving the Big Ten championship from Indy to Vegas. Like, it would be amazing for everybody. USC being in the Big Ten now, like having Oregon, having Washington, having UCLA. Like, I know Vegas is still closer to the West Coast than the Midwest, but you kind of get it as close in the middle as you can. That makes sense, like an area that would make some sense. The Big Ten championship being played in Vegas would make Vegas a boat ton of money. People would love to go watch their team play in the Big Ten championship in Vegas. Like, give the football fans a reason to go to Vegas and sit there on a conference championship Saturday.
They can handle it too. They can definitely handle it.
Yeah, and sit there and gamble all day. They'd make it a night game. The Big Ten still is always the night game. So a nighttime game in Vegas really puts it at like 5 o'clock, 4:30, 5 o'clock. That time, like local time for Vegas. So, like, I think the Big Ten, the commissioner and all them are watching this game to be like, look, man.
Sure they are.
This venue looks at, we know it's amazing because it's the Raiders Stadium.
Let's see how the fans turn out. That's a great point.
Fans turn out, and you got LSU and USC traveling, selling out the stadium, and you got a lot of maroon and gold and purple and gold. Like, they're going to start, man, imagine if we put the scarlet and gray in there. Imagine if we put the maize in blue in there. Like, just that would be
aesthetics. Like you mentioned, Mo, the aesthetics is just
that'll be.
Well, we're seeing everyone wants to be in that stadium. Everybody wants to have their main event, whatever it is, at Allegiant Stadium. Like, that is the
boxing. You got UFC. You got Beyonce.
Yeah. WWE is trying to get there for a.
You know what I'm saying? Like
a wrestling. Like, every entity wants. It's like you want to be in Dallas.
It's like
you want at Jerry's World.
Yep.
You want it at SoFi. You want it at Allegiant Stadium. Like, that's the three stadiums where everything is going.
Yeah, the soccer tournament did great there. It looked great. It's going to happen. Mo's right. That's actually a really good point. You forget about some of these side stories. That's a good pick. That's a good
they're going to be the Big Ten commissioner going to be like,
And all this is experiment. Like, that's another thing about these games. Like, as you're watching the matchups, as you're watching Notre Dame go into Texas A&M, like, let's watch how the athletes match up.
Right? That's not a new game.
No, it's at 10.
Notre Dame. Yeah, it's at 10.
And then another one to watch, like Georgia Clemson, biggest game of the weekend. The storylines are, of course, Georgia, in my opinion, is going to want to prove that they were the national champions last year, and that they blew it. They're going to make a statement. They're also like, this is a recruiting thing. Like, you want to bury Clemson. If you think Clemson's down, whatever level you think down means for Clemson, Georgia does not want to get off their neck. They want them, like, out of the conversation, in the recruiting war, and they don't want Clemson back because Clemson was real good, and it's gonna
Clemson was it was Bama and then Clemson. Like, Clemson or Bama, like, it was reversed. It was just like, all right,
for 5 years, bro. Like, for
5
years,
it's like, remember we saw Cleveland versus the Warriors for 4 straight years. It felt like Alabama and Clemson were playing for either to get to the national championship or.
And right now, this is a big one too, because here's the thing, this is the truth of this game. I don't care what anybody says. Mo knows it's true. Chris, you're gonna know it's true. If Dabo gets, like, manhandled in this game, You know what I mean? Like, it really looks different. Like, if it looks like Georgia beats them up and down the line of scrimmage, not like we saw a couple years ago, that was actually a benefit to Ohio State. They matched up with Georgia, a great Georgia team, got beat, but everybody was like, okay, these teams are closer than we thought.
Yeah, they belonged. Yeah.
If Clemson doesn't look like that in a loss, and they're also won't go the NIL route and won't go the transfer portal route, I don't care what anybody says in Clemson, Dabo is gone. Because they're going to be like, we can't do this.
Yeah,
so
I think
if they get beat up,
and they start peaking, they start getting more interested in potential, new head coach candidates. Because like Jeff said, I mean, if you're not going to buy into NIL and you're not going to buy into the transfer portal, then like, okay, if you
will,
if you want to stick to your guns, then like you still have, if you're going to do that, you got to put the cream of the crop talent out there still.
Yes, you have to be good. You have to be good.
You got to be good. You got to be competitive in these games. If you're going to say, I'm going to do it my way, your way still has to look like a winning way. Do I think Clemson wins this game? Not at all. Like, I think Georgia does everything that we say Clemson should be afraid happens. But like, if you want to do it your way has to be able to win, or else you get pushed out. Like, because like you can't convince me that like Dabo Swinney's ever going to win the national championship without buying into NIL or the transfer portal.
Right.
Like, it's just not going to happen. No coach. Ryan Day today could tell me I'm not buying into the transfer portal NIL. I'd be like, Ryan Day doesn't want to win.
And this happened like, and we've seen this happen, as much as I hate to bring it up, but a great example of this happened to the team up north. They stuck to their guns. They kept hiring all these coaches that were their kind of guy, and they were going to do it this way, and they were going to do it that way. And for 20 years, the Buckeyes ran them off the field. And another guy came in and said, we're going to do it different. Yeah, and they got in the transfer portal. They got guys to stay. They got NIL money, and they got a national championship.
Yeah, that guy came in there and said, we're going to cheat, because it still looked the same when he came in there for 4 years.
Oh, no, 100%. But I'm saying, like, but he also used all the resources.
Yeah, he did. Yeah,
but this is where Dabo's at. Like, Dabo, if you're going to stick to your guns,
they're not recruiting like they used to.
I just hate Jim also.
Like, no, I'm with you, Mo. But I'm just saying this example of somebody who was Clemson might have to bring in one of these a dude that don't have the morals that Dabo does if they want to stay in this arms race, because
they've been outside the top 10 in recruiting for the last 4 years.
Well, if in another thing that
they're still good, but they're not getting those top 5 classes like they.
But I'm gonna tell you with Dabo, they go out there and get blown out. I think his legacy takes a hit. Now, I know he won twice. I know he went there 3 times. But listen, you had Deshaun Watson, who looked like generational in college. You had Trevor Lawrence, who came out here sunshine as a freshman, beat Alabama in the national championship and looked flawless. I mean, remember, since then, though, you had another 5-star quarterback in DJU. Failed. He's gone. He's now on his 3rd team. They got a 5-star in Cade Klubnik, who everybody told us he's this dude. He's really great. And it's not even if Cade Klubnik looked great or DJU looked great and they just maybe their defense was bad, so they're losing shootout games.
Yeah.
But when you're getting 5-star quarterbacks and your quarterbacks are flopping, they're not any good. They're transferring out to other schools, or you're holding on to them because you never recruited anything better, and you keep losing the way you're losing. Like, you start to look at the legacy like, man, maybe what did the new kids say? Maybe he was a Deshaun Watson and Trevor Lawrence merchant. Like, his success was dedicated to them two, but his before and after was never really that good. Because before Deshaun and after Trevor Lawrence, what has Clemson been?
Yeah.
A middle of the pack team that maybe could get an upset. They'll put some NFL players in there. They had the Sammy Watkins days where like they were pretty good. They were decent. They had some playmakers. They had Sammy Watkins.
But now you're not without NIL. You're not keeping Sammy Watkins nowadays. You're not keeping NFL players.
You're not getting the elite quarterback that you're not getting that elite quarterback you need. And
so it's a big game. Like it's huge. And I need to see Georgia come out and prove that I'm not dumb and beat the brakes off of them and show that like I'm not crazy about how good I thought Georgia was last year and this year.
I think Carson Beck starts his Heisman campaign in week
100%. I think
they played Louisiana Lafayette. I'd be like, who cares? He's going to look great, but it doesn't matter. I think Carson Beck He's going. I think he starts his #1 draft pick and Heisman campaign.
My lock of the weekend, mine personal. Don't nobody take my advice because I picked Florida State last week. My lock of the weekend is Georgia to not just cover but annihilate Clemson, just to annihilate them.
I think so.
Yeah,
I'm with you. I'd be surprised.
They got a bad taste in their mouth. They got a bad taste in their mouth after last year. They know that was a fluke.
And all them players,
they believe it. I mean, they know it. They believe it.
Like I think, with all them players going to jail and stuff too. Like, no, for real. I think like they're thinking about that. Like, man, they think something wrong with the program. People was talking about culture.
You're right.
Kirby Smart, but man, listen, Kirby Smart right now. The greatest head coach of all time retired. Kirby Smart is the best head coach in college football right now. 2-time national champ. Really is about to go out there and prove that he should have won 3 in a row. Like, that's what he's about to do, is go out there and prove that we should have been 3-time national champs. We only lost 1 game in 3 years. We're not going to start losing right now. And we're going to show you how much better we've been than literally everybody else in the country. Let's
also remember, Dabo insults every coach in the country by the way he goes about his program and the way he talks about it. He don't just say, like, I don't do it that way. Like, he makes it look like that's not the right way to do it. So, like, when a coach like Smart comes in, that runs his program the, I don't know, modern way, like, he can't go toe-to-toe with him. He can't go toe-to-toe with the guy that says, this is how you do it. This is the right way to do it. Like, it can't look like Clemson's a quarterback away. Like, Georgia has to look head and shoulders above Clemson, or we're going to be like, maybe Dabo's got a point. Like, it's just one of them games. It really is a cool matchup for week 1.
Come out on that side.
So, Jeff, what's on your mind, man? I know you got to go.
Pretty much just game day. Just really drove me nuts this week. We touched on it earlier. I watched about 13 seconds of it, and they basically said that 8 of the Big Ten teams had a chance. You know what I mean? Like, it's crazy. The ESPN versus the Big Ten thing now, because of the networks and all that stuff, has become ridiculous. The show wasn't good. It's not fun anymore. It's clunky. They said there was a great crowd there. There wasn't. I think it's they're going to have to like we talked about, they're basing everything on McAfee, and it just ain't it. I don't think college football fans, I think the people that are in touch with McAfee, I don't necessarily know are the most, like, actually watching all the games. I think they're McAfee listeners, maybe not necessarily game watchers.
Yeah.
It's just become kind of a joke. Good for him to make his money or whatever, but I don't, as someone who cherishes college football and definitely, like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm care as much as anybody. He adds nothing to it. I don't look forward to anything he says or hears. I'm not saying he's not an entertainer, but they're basing everything on that. Herb Street, sounds like he's kind of checked out. Saban's a mistake. No personality, not giving us any insight, refuses to, like, guess, and just shit like that. Like, just really, really disappointed in the show. I never watch it. That's why, but that's probably it. That, not just for the record. I should have told a little story. Went to Wisconsin, told the bartender I was a Buckeye, and she basically told me to fuck off for 20 minutes, and it was awesome. I was so proud of her. She goes back to Madison this week, and she would tell all of her friends that a Buckeye walked into her bar, and she told them she wasn't having it. It was great. The state of Wisconsin was cool. Had a lot of good college football and sports conversations up there. Really enjoyed my time. Got to see my buddy. Got to watch some great college football games. So yeah, big week overall. Big week overall. So, gentlemen, this has been a blast. I know you'll finish it out strong. I can't wait. I'm gonna be doing something every week. You know what I mean? So, like, if you're listening to this now, I'll put this out on my show. But we're going to do weekly recaps, and we're going to do kind of the same thing, biggest storylines and all that. So, with that being said, I'm Jeff from Jeff Needs Sports. These are my guys. Check out the Off the Ball Network, and we'll catch you next week, gentlemen.
All right, Jeff.
Peace out.
Yeah, I'm about to have a fantasy football draft here in about 10 minutes. So.
All right, so we'll go through some games and just get you predictions, and then we'll sign off. So obviously we just talked about Clemson, Georgia.
Yeah, Georgia big time.
Right?
Georgia big time.
Georgia, what is the spread on that?
20. So I say Georgia by at least 21.
Georgia is favored by
13.5.
13.5. Yeah.
I say Georgia by 21. They cover.
Georgia by 21. I'll go with you for that. Yeah, they might.
At least.
Yeah. that could get ugly. But we'll
Bad.
see. We'll see. We'll see what happens.
I hope it gets.
What's another game? Let's go with Miami, Florida.
I'm taking Miami.
Taking Miami.
Yeah, I'm gonna pick Miami, bro. I do think Florida's a good team, and I do think Florida's gonna play. I don't think it's gonna be a blow. I'd be surprised if Miami blew Florida out, but it's just, I mean, for them to have a quarterback, for them to have some good wide receivers, like for Miami to actually have an offense and have like some real like talent wise, like when they line up against in Ohio State, and I don't know what the score would be in those games, but like you just take the personnel on Miami and you put them on the other side of warm-ups against an Ohio State, or Oregon, or Oklahoma, or Texas, they're going to look like they belong on the same field. And I know Florida will too, but I think Cam Ward's better than Graham Mertz. I think, Cam Ward's going to be able to make some plays, and going into the swamp, like I know going into the swamp is hard, but like Miami plays in South Miami, so like the heat's not going to bother them that much.
Yeah,
to get to them, but like I think this is a statement game. Like if Miami wants everybody to believe that they're back and they could win the ACC, which I think they could, and especially after Florida State losing, like I got Miami in the driver's seat to win the ACC. So if you want everybody to continue to be believers, you win this game. So I have no doubt that they win. Like, do they win big? No. But do they win? Like, this is a game. Miami got afforded the game. All they got to do is win. All they got to do is beat Florida, and they're good. Like, that's it. They can win 28-27. It doesn't matter. You are ranked 19. You're playing a team in Florida that everybody's saying good, and it's just benefit of a bad schedule or a tough schedule. All you have to do is win. So there's not even pressure or style points. You just got to go out there and win. And I think Miami is good enough to just go out there and win. If that's all I'm going to ask for them to do is in week 1, win their game, I think they do that.
Yep. They have the weapons. Sam Brown coming from Houston, Restrepo, Jacoby George.
Talent,
like we got talent, man. We got the talent. If this is the year, man, I know we heard this a few times with Miami where this is their best team they've had in a minute. So the line of scrimmage, their offensive line is really good. Francis Maioga is a All-American type of right tackle. They got it. Ruben Bain was the defensive freshman of the year. They got an abundance of nice young pass rushers. I think this is a must win. I think you got to go into the swamp. You got to take care of business. Like I said, I don't care how you do it. I don't care if it's by 1 point. I don't care if it's by 20 points. Just get the dub.
Yeah.
But I'm nervous because I think this Florida team is better than what people are, thinking. Obviously, the schedule is brutal, but I think Miami gets to take care of business, and we show that we're on the right track, and we'll be 1-0, and all the major teams in Florida will be 0-1. So that's also a good thing. All right, let's go with 2 more games. Let's go with what's another game? Big game. Let's go Notre Dame, Texas A&M.
Oh my God, that's the toughest one.
That's a tough one.
I'm gonna take Notre Dame. I'm gonna take Notre Dame. I mean, this is 2 teams that we like to kill because they get overhyped at the beginning of the season and then they plateau and we know what they really are.
Mm-hmm.
I still think Notre Dame's the better team, and I'm gonna be honest. Don't cancel me, but listen, they got arguably the best corner in the country in Ben Morrison over there at Notre Dame. They got one of the best, if not the best, corner duo in the country. I'm sorry. Just don't see a wide receiver room full of white receivers going crazy on the best corner duo in college football.
You wasn't hyped about that picture?
No, that was
funny.
That was embarrassing. I'm gonna take Notre Dame. I think they got enough talent. I think Riley Leonard's one of those dudes. I don't know if he's an NFL quarterback, and I don't really care. He's one of those dudes. He's a dude on that college football field, though. Like, he know how to make plays. If he could succeed and be good in Duke, I think he'll be good in Notre Dame. So I'm gonna take Notre Dame. I think he can will them to win in a game like that. May not go to the NFL. Don't care.
Going against his former coach. That's a nice little storyline going there. I can't root for Notre Dame, so I'm going with Texas A&M.
I'm not rooting for Notre Dame. picking Notre Dame.
I'm picking against them. I can't root for them. So it's against my blood to root for a Notre Dame team. So I'm gonna take you with Notre Dame. All right, so what else we got? We just did Notre Dame. Does USC stand a chance Sunday night?
I think they stand a chance. I think it'll be a close game. I think LSU wins, but I think it's a close game. Like, I think it turns out to be the best watch game of the weekend. Like, I think it's, like when Florida State played LSU last year, down to the wire, it was the best game to open up the season. LSU found themselves playing the same game. I think they played on either Sunday night or Monday night. They might have played on Labor Day night, but they were in the same predicament. So, yeah, I'm going to take LSU in a close one.
Yeah, I think USC is kind of underrated.
Yeah, I think they're good enough. Like, they're going to make this game close. Like, this is going to be like two good teams. Somebody got to win, somebody got to lose. This ain't the Georgia Clemson to me where I just think Georgia going to blow them out. Like, this is somebody got to win, somebody got to lose. So I'm going to take LSU to win, though. Both of my homeboys, two of my closest homeboys, one an LSU fan, the other a USC fan. So I can't wait to just be sitting in the group chat and listen, watch them go back and forth during that game, and I just get to laugh at whoever's miserable.
I think the group chat could possibly be very bad. I mean, it was bad a couple of days ago with Florida State.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I had to hold it back. I couldn't go full crazy because I'm like, well, my team got a game.
Like, I talk crazy. We got Akron this week.
You got Akron. I mean, you got the Zip.
No, we ain't losing. I doubt.
Yeah, it doesn't matter how much y'all win by.
We probably look flawless almost. Like, I'm not remotely worried about this game.
I'm like, oh man, we play our in-state rivals.
Yeah, we're 50-point favorites, bro. I'm not worried about this game at all. Like,
favorites.
Me getting upset about this game is going to be like me getting upset about Ohio State Akron is just picking the team apart because we got national championship.
Oh yeah, you got a championship.
But really worried about like karma coming to bite me in the butt because I messed with that a little too much about Florida State. I ain't worried. Not yet. I ain't worried. Y'all got to wait some weeks before I'm concerned.
I'm nervous. So the chat's gonna be crazy. That's gonna be intense. So I'm looking forward to that. A lot of our teams are playing big games, and we'll see. We'll see. Thaddeus might be throwing haymakers if we lose to Florida. So I'm nervous about that. I'm more nervous about that than actually losing the game. That took a lot.
Thad, I'm telling you, boy, I better not lose to Florida, boy. That is
that is gonna be mad.
Like he can't wait for 6:30 on a Saturday night if y'all lose.
7 p.m. Our group chat can either be like, all right, we want to know, or
you might be dead inside, Chris. You like if y'all lose, you might be dead inside.
I'm used to being dead inside after week 1 Miami, but
even got a Sunday football. Like you ain't even got like the Giants to look forward to. Like they're gonna be bad.
Luckily, we're playing the Minnesota Vikings, and they're losing everybody too.
Football season is just bad for you.
I'm waiting for 2025, man. When Dak's a New York Giant,
you're not getting in.
I can't afford him, so
yeah, you seen that fuck out of here.
I saw that image. I was like, okay. Let me get hyped about 2025, or I'm just gonna watch Carson Beck and make sure Georgia takes care of him because that's
all that matters. That's all that matters.
I'm gonna watch a lot of Georgia football this year.
But yeah, let me get out of here, man. Bro, we about to start this. I ain't even got no strategy. I'm about to just pick best player available.
Going to Raw, yeah. It's going to Raw.
You know what I'm saying? And then hey, we'll make some take later. I ain't got no strategy.
There you go. All right, bro. Be safe, be well. Everyone, appreciate everyone tuning in.
All right, yes, sir.